According to an exclusive report from Axios, the U.S. and Iran could be closing in on a one-page memo to end the war, according to officials. Not that it's a war any longer. Anyway, here to weigh in, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is with us. The president did follow up and say either this gets worked out now, or it seemed like he's had it. He's given them every opportunity to sort out whatever power struggle might be going on there. He clearly does not want to destroy the infrastructure because 90 million innocent people will be impacted by that, but he certainly has proven he will do it.
Well, I think you sort of put your finger on it. The president thought, I think, originally, that if we showed determination, that we'd be dealing with rational people and we could find some kind of a deal. He probably thought it would happen 6 or 8 weeks ago. But in fact, we're dealing with religious fanatics who endured an 8-year war with Iraq and lost 1 million people, 1 million casualties. And they're just hunkered down. Now, what's happened apparently is the blockade, the work we're doing through the financial networks, all are bringing pressure to bear at an extraordinary rate in crippling the Iranian economy and making it literally, I think, unmanageable for the current dictatorship. And they're now faced, I think, with a real question of survival. Without military action, without occupying it, without American troops. And I think they may well be prepared to offer remarkable concessions, more than I would have guessed, because they see that over the next 3 or 4 weeks, the writing's on the wall. The test will be whether or not, for example, they're willing to turn over the uranium material they have that I think is about 1,100 pounds and get it out of the country. The test will be whether they'll back off on trying to control the Strait of Hormuz. If those 2 or 3 things like that are met, President Trump will have had a huge victory at a relatively modest cost without the use of American combat troops on the ground, and it will be remarkable. I think Reagan used to say, trust but verify. I think we have to see, 1, what are they really offering in this one page? And 2, are there benchmarks of verifying it, of checking it? In the long run, you get what you inspect, not what you expect. And so we have to see what are the benchmarks, what dates are the benchmarks, and what happens. But it would be a remarkable, historic achievement if the president can get the kind of deal that some people think may be implied by this one-page memorandum.
Look, they're losing $400 to $500 million a day. Their country's currency is zero. Their inflation rate is over 200%. Half the workforce is out of work. They're running out of basic supplies for people. If they continue this, and if we could somehow get arms in the hands of the Iranian people, to me, that's game over for the regime, which probably would give this former great Persian culture an opportunity to reemerge and join the world community. That would be my hope for the people.
Well, I think that the president has been cautious because he doesn't want to see Iran fall into the kind of chaos that Syria spent the last 20 years in. And I think he's trying to find a way to liberate the country without so totally destroying it or setting up a civil war. But on the other hand, remember, this is a dictatorship which killed 42,000 of its own people this year. So when people talk about our bombing campaign, we've killed far fewer people than the Iranian dictatorship among its own population. And I do think, as you point out, as things get worse, you're going to see an armed rebellion. And I think you're gradually going to see us, much as we did against the Russians in Afghanistan in the 1980s. You'll probably see us begin to help supply the equipment and things for the Iranians to liberate themselves. And that's part of what the regime's got to deal with. I mean, can it really hang on if the whole country, in the end, is deeply opposed to it?
You know, before Epic Fury began, I did tell the supreme leader and the top leadership, the mullahs in Iran, if I was you, I'd get in that plane, probably full of cash and other currency, and I'd take that trip over to Russia while you can. They ended up dead. I'll say to the current leadership, you're going to end up dead. This won't end well for you, but your choice. Mr. Speaker, thank you for being with us. All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else. Like and subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday.